Lead me to some soul today. Oh, teach me, Lord, just what to
Welcome,
say.
everyone, to episode number 74. Now, I find that quite interesting. We're already at episode number 74. And we are so happy that you're here with us today. And we've called this series of episodes, if you will, Leading Others to Christ. And during these episodes, those of you that know and have seen these, you know what I'm talking about. But we will be focused on evangelism. And one of our goals, we have several, but one of them is to stir us up to love and good works, especially in the area of reaching our family, friends, and neighbors with the gospel of Christ. My name is Dan Barker, and uh, uh, I'm one of the evangelists here at the Vestavia Church of Christ. Vestavia is located in Vestavia Hills, which is a suburb of Birmingham, Alabama. And so, again, we're so happy to have you here today. And uh, those of you that have listened to this, you know that I'm passionate about our topic. And I have been ever since I obeyed the gospel when I was 21 years old in Owensboro, Kentucky. And I've always been striving to teach others, to sow the seed, to be a fisher of men and women, to make disciples, to persuade men and women, to teach others. And remembering, I've tried to mention this every episode, remembering what Paul said to Timothy in 2 Timothy 2:2. And the things that you've heard from me among many witnesses, commit these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. And then later in that same chapter, Paul says to Timothy, and I think this is a real emotional statement, but he tells him to be useful for the master, prepared for every good work. So those of you that know, you know, I came up with this idea of this podcast to be able to identify the men and women that are out there that are doing this, fellow workers that are involved in leading others to Christ in their community. And once we identify who they are, we want to interview them. We want to ask them questions. We want to learn from them. And we want to find out who they are, why they're so motivated in doing what they're doing, and see what we can learn. And because we're always learning, you know, I'm 76, but I'm still learning every day. So we're really excited today to have our 74th guest with us, if you will, Nick Angel. Nick, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Dan, and I certainly appreciate this effort that you are putting forth in through these interviews.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes. So our guest is Nick Angel. Nick preaches for the Loudon Church of Christ in Loudon, Tennessee, and really, Nick, and what I've done on these every time, and I will do the same thing with you when we get through today. But I've tried to get everybody that I've interviewed to give me at least three names of people that they know that I need to interview, because we all have our own, you know, network of friends and whatever, and to find out who the people are that are out there. It's been fascinating. I've got over 200 names on my
Oh,
list.
wow.
No, I know. But anyway, we always start these out with what I call, it's like the old elevator pitch or the short bio. And for those that don't know Nick Angel, why don't you take just a minute and tell us who you are, where you were born, how old you were when you obeyed the gospel, and just kind of bring us up to speed.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Nick Angel, and I was born in Riverside, California in 1990. My dad was born in Mexico and migrated to Southern California whenever he was a young boy and grew up there. Then he moved out to East Tennessee for a job that was within the family. He got set up on a blind date with my mom. 3 weeks later, they got engaged, got married. 3 to 4 months later, he drug her out to California. I was born there. She had all she could have of Southern California and said, we need to move back to East Tennessee. So I might be born in Southern California, but I've been raised in East Tennessee and lived here the vast majority of my life. I was baptized in seventh grade and finished out middle school, high school, and a couple years of college in Cleveland, Tennessee. Went to school in Knoxville, got my degree from the University of Tennessee in recreation and sport management, but realized that a lifestyle of sport and a job in the world of sports just wasn't going to be very conducive for the goals that I had in my life. I was dating a girl that I would eventually become engaged to and marry, and I just recognized that that type of lifestyle wasn't going to be conducive to me being able to support her, and the work commitment just wasn't going to be it just wasn't going to work because I desired to serve the church and to be an active role within a local church. So the summer previous to me graduating, I actually did a preaching internship for three months at the El Bethel Church in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Just kind of getting my feet wet. I really, even at that point, had no real desire to do the work of an evangelist, to preach full time. My uncle's pitch to me was, "Hey, why don't you come do this?" And I said, "Well, Larry, I don't feel like preaching. Like, preaching's not going to be my thing." He's like, "Okay, I get that, but you do realize you'll get to spend 3 months with your girlfriend in the same town as opposed to long distance traveling 3.5 hours one way." I was like, "Oh, well, you buried the lead. You should have said that first, and I would have done anything. I would have been out there working in your chicken houses if that's what you'd have led with." But that truly was just a real pivotal point in my life, because I came to appreciate the work of preaching. And I had done some preaching up to that point. The church that I grew up in did not have a located preacher for some time, so the men would alternate, and I would pitch in here or there, which I would cringe in a just embarrassing way if I were to go back and listen to those now. Thankfully, I think they're lost to the annals of time. But then in college as well, the church I was part of in college did not have a located preacher. So the men rotated as well. So just all of those things kind of came together where I desired to pursue the work of preaching. Once I graduated college, went out to Little Rock for a year. And then after time at the Fairview Park Church in Little Rock, I spent almost 7 years with the Pleasant Plains Church in Jackson, and then had the opportunity to come back home and to live in East Tennessee and to work in East Tennessee. And that was something I couldn't hardly pass up. Actually, the entirety of my immediate family is a part of the church here in Loudon. So that's really cool to be with them, and especially to work with my brothers-in-law, both my younger sisters. Both of their husbands are young Christians, so it's been awesome to work with them and to really see their progress, and to work with this church here in Loudon. We are just incredibly blessed by God for the situation that we're in, and we're very thankful to be here and thankful for the work that we get to do.
Wow, great bio. That was good. That was good. You didn't rehearse that either, did you?
I mean, people have asked a few times, because they'll say, "Hey, where'd you go to school?" I say Tennessee.
Right.
What'd you graduate? What's your degree? And I say recreation sport management. So it always leads to the question, well, what are you doing preaching?
What are you doing now?
Yeah, because I worked at the rec center as well on campus, and as it was approaching graduation, people will be saying, "Well, what are you going to do after you graduate, Nick?" I was like, "I'm actually going to go work with a local church." And they're like, "Oh, are you going to be the youth minister or the sports minister?" I was like, "No, I'm just going to go be a servant of all. I'm going to just go do what I can in sharing the gospel and teaching." So the sport management to preaching route is we'll just say it's just a little bit different from me and my brothers who maybe went to FC or other colleges where there was a real focus on preaching and teaching.
Yes.
My way is just a little bit different.
Well, that's one of the reasons I like doing this, is that just probably I keep saying this, I need to figure it up exactly, but you're the 74th interview, and I've probably haven't met 80% in person, haven't met 80% of the ones I've interviewed. It's all been meeting this way. And Lord willing, we'll be able to get to meet in person at some point. But I love to hear the stories, because everybody's story is different. You know, like born in California, moved to Tennessee. I don't know. There's probably been somebody that said that, but I don't know. But dad from Mexico, and then a sports background in college and UT. And see, that's what I did. I was going to be I was a basketball coach for 12 years.
That's what I was going to do. I was going to focus on probably soccer, maybe something else as well. The plan originally was to be a high school teacher, maybe get my teaching certificate so I can coach in high school or something like that. But that's not what turned up.
So I won't take our time here, but we've got some similar things there of all the time I was teaching and coaching, I was still involved in preaching. And because something else that you said there too that has been a part of this podcast that's come up. A couple of times you mentioned, well, that this such and such congregation didn't have a located preacher. And so there were opportunities there for you, which was a blessing in disguise, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not so much in disguise. The opportunity was just right there. But there are a lot of, unfortunately, there's just a lot of congregations out there today that are struggling because there's a shortage of preachers right now. And it's that's come up with lots of numbers that are not very positive, and we're going to keep this positive. But that's one of the things that we're trying to learn to see what we can do to help is to create, if nothing else, an awareness that some congregations are really struggling. I heard this week, an article one of our brothers wrote. He made the comment, well, it's only going to take a couple more deaths in the congregation, and the people that are left are going to have to decide whether they close the doors or not. And there's some that are just struggling that much. But thank you for all of that. It triggered a lot of things. So you're married, right?
I am. Yes.
And what's your wife's name?
My wife's name is Katie,
So
formerly Katie Mooneyham.
Okay.
And we have two little girls.
And two little girls. Oh, well, yes, that's sir. Great. What are their names?
Olivia, she is 6 and she's in kindergarten. And then my youngest, who's in the next room, is Gabriella, and she is going to be 4 in January.
Well, see, by mentioning Katie, right? Did I write it down? Katie? All right. Mm-hmm. Well, that way she'll listen to it since we've mentioned her name. Right?
Well, normally, I mean, she hears enough of me talking all the time. So the more time she can get away from me talking is probably better for her psyche.
Here, I've done this a couple of times. Let's just take a second. A lot of times, there's problems that can be created with preachers and their families, and especially if they have to move very often, and families and all the things that are involved with all that. But the role that the wife plays in evangelism, in preaching, just a snapshot here. Let's give a shout out, if you will, to Katie of how much she helps you in your work.
Yeah, Katie, I say this in the most loving way. She's a bit of a strange bird in the fact that she grew up wanting to be a preacher's wife. Wow. She had a wonderful example within the local church there in Shelbyville of a tremendous preacher's wife. And that's something she desired. So whenever whenever we started discussing me preaching, I don't know if she'd ever mentioned it up to that point. She's like, well, I always kind of wish that I could marry a preacher. And then that it certainly is a testament to her parents. I have just unbelievably awesome in-laws. My father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law are salt of the earth type of people. And they have done nothing but support me in the work that I'm doing as well. So if I'm going to talk about really the role that Katie plays, I have to give credit to them for raising up a daughter who did not shy away from a desire to be a preacher's wife. Because I have some brothers that I've spoken to before who have talked about, if I ever said I didn't want to preach anymore, my wife said she'd be totally down with that. And that really hurt. That I don't know if it was meant to be discouraging, but it kind of discouraged me that sure. I felt as if that brother didn't really have the support system that he could have. Katie has never been anything but supportive of me in everything. Everywhere I've taken her, took her to Arkansas for a year, moved her out to West Tennessee for a year, which is, if you know anything about Tennessee, we have what we call the TriStar, which represents the 3 different sections of Tennessee. There's East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and West Tennessee. They're very distinct sections of Tennessee, and they're all separated by bodies of water for the most part, or plateaus. So I'm from East Tennessee, so we got that star covered. She's from Middle Tennessee, we have that star covered. So we lived in West Tennessee to get that star covered as well. And she never complained, even though being away from family, she's a big family person, loves being with family. She never complained. She's always supported me. And especially like in personal studies, anytime we have an opportunity to baptize someone, I always encourage them to go through a home study with me following. We have a 6 lesson study that we go through, and Katie's there, and we're talking, and we're conversing with one another, whoever we might be studying with. We have a young couple right now that we've been studying with for the past few months. It's a boyfriend and girlfriend. The boyfriend is a member of the church here and started bringing his girlfriend, and we were able to sit down and study with her, and she was baptized into Christ, and we've been studying since then over the past few months. And Katie's right there with us, and I just really, really appreciate that about her. And I could not speak any more glowingly of the support that she's given me as a preacher's wife. She goes through a lot, and she experiences a lot, and she's right there with me. And I'll be honest, I don't know how I could do this work without her at all.
Well, I'm proud of you and I think she will be. She might even give you a hug, after hearing you saying all those nice things about her. But just several things that you said there, talking about the sister that she knew that was a good example of a preacher's wife, and she grew up watching and listening to her, and then your in-laws, the support that they give you. I mean, it's people, there's a reason they call this work, right? Personal work, or it's hard, and most people don't
Yeah.
realize, they think, well, you just sit there and read all day, or you don't, you only have to do work 2 times a week or 3 times a week.
Yeah, that's right. You work a day and a half every week. That's
Yeah.
the running joke that I hear the most.
And it's just, we could all tell our stories of the things that we run into and challenges that we have, and people just don't appreciate that unless they, that's why we try to encourage so many on our end to go with us. I try to expose as many people as I can to what's out there, to to follow up with visitors, to set up studies, to be involved in studies, all those type things. It's so important. But well, thanks for sharing all that about Katie. I guess that's awesome. Let's take the next few minutes and tell us about Nikki Robinson, who Lindsay's mom, right?
Yes. Oh, well, I wish I knew her better, because they were just so cool to speak with. They visited, I think last month for the first time. Lindsay and their daughter moved here from Virginia within the past couple of months, and they visited. I believe her dad's name's Mark. Is that right?
Mark, that's right.
Yeah, Mark and Nikki. So got to meet them, and they're super cool folks. I realize why Nikki is so cool. It's because her mom and dad are just really, really neat people.
Yeah, they really are. And we've really got to know them since we moved here to Vestavia. And I want to give a shout out to Glenda Greer too. I've known Glenda for a long time. I know she worships there with you, and she worshiped with us in Lexington. But tell us about the. Look, some of your stuff even gets out. Like Nikki brought. She brought that back, and then she brought your. Let me see if I can get it here. Your card, and the message that's there on the back. Show that real quick. So tell us a little bit about the Loudon congregation.
Yeah. This church has been around for a really long time. I believe this church was founded in either 53 or 56, I believe. Okay. And it is the current church house that I'm sitting right now was purchased, I think, around that time ish, and it has had multiple additions to it, adding classroom space and such. I believe this used to be an old house that was converted into a church house. And through that time, there's been a number of preachers that have worked with this local church. There were a couple of men who were able to serve as shepherds of this church. I think from 2005, 2006-ish, for about 10 years or so. I think that's right, if I got my history right. And then one of the brothers had to step down for illness. And so this church has a long history, has had a lot of people working, like I said, as preachers in various capacities. And I would definitely say this is a staple of the Loudon community. Loudon is not a very big town. I think right now it's probably about 6,000 people live here in Loudon. And we've had a good opportunity since we moved here to be engaged in the community. We have only lived here in Loudon since the beginning of May, I believe it was. We were living in Cleveland with my parents for 11 or so months prior to that, because whenever we decided to move in June of last year, well, the housing market was just chaos, and we just had zero ability to find a house up here. So we did the long distance thing for a while, which was a real drag. I didn't after about 2 weeks, I became very tired of that, just because it was difficult to to feel like I was really doing the work I desired to do, not being here in the community and not really
Sure.
having a foothold in the community yet. But we made it through that process. We got up here, got my daughter in school, and we've been able to volunteer at school and meet people there. We what you held up actually, the three L's was it was something I produced for what is called Riverfest here in Loudon, which is just a big festival done at the park downtown. And we wanted to set up a booth and to just share with the community some information about the church here in Loudon, let them know that we're here. I feel as if COVID was a moment where a lot of churches could have a restart and
Yes.
kind of have a fresh start with getting their name out in the community. I think that's really important. I know some people, whenever you talk about marketing the church, kind of cringe at that, kind of withdraw a little bit from that because it doesn't sound, to some people it just sounds weird, and it sounds like you're making the church a business more than anything else. And while I understand that to an extent, I think there's also a real need to market the church, for the church to
Absolutely.
have a name within the community and for people to be able to easily recognize the church within the community. So one of the ways I've gone about that is by just creating a logo. One of the logo that you can see on the business card and even on the three L's. I took yeah,
I'm going to hold it up again there.
yeah,
So
there's the three L's, and then the logo at the top. There's another church that has a logo very similar to that. I went and did a few changes with it, changed the squares and the rectangles and just different things with it to try to make it our own and add some of the color. The high school here in Loudon is red, so I figured, hey, why not make the community is red? Why not make the church's logo red? Again, to show a connection to the community. There we go.
yeah,
So I put that on everything. I mean, I literally put that on just about everything I can find, just again to make the church stand out, that somebody sees that logo and they immediately think about the church. And, if they're ever in that moment in life where they're thinking, I'm lost, I need some spiritual guidance, I need someone to reach out to, maybe because they've seen that logo, they'll think, I remember this church over on Ward Avenue. Maybe I can, do I have that business card somewhere, or maybe I can just find out something about them and reach out to them. So we want to make ourselves available. We want to make ourselves recognizable for the community, because that's one of the most important aspects of a local church, is to outreach to the community and to be a part of the community and to recognize that this is a place where a group of people meet and we are spiritually focused. We are wanting to serve God together. We want to work with God to work for God together. And we certainly would want members of the community to come and join our little faith community. We are a
yeah.
little community in and of itself within the larger Loudon community. And we would love for people to come join us and investigate, come and see what we're about here at the Loudon Church of Christ.
All right. That's just excellent. And it's, again, sometimes most of the people that are listening to the podcast, I think, are folks that have got some experience, or they're wanting to learn like all of us are.
Mm-hmm.
And but sometimes we hear things that we haven't heard before. Sometimes it's the way you express it, and then it's like, I hadn't thought about it that way, or yeah, I could do that. I could, and maybe I'll get your contact information at the end of the podcast here, but somebody might want to reach out to you and say, could I get a copy of this and maybe borrow an idea or two?
Yeah, I literally just told somebody last night, or I think it was Wednesday night, because they were saying something something new we'd put up here. It was like, oh, that's a good idea. I was like, I want to be honest with you. Probably 90% of my ideas I've gotten from other people.
Of
I mean,
course.
my best ideas are certainly not my own. I mean, I've even got on my desk right here a number of other type of trifolds that
Yes.
I've gotten from other churches that I used to really make our own. So I've got all these good things I've seen in other churches that are
Yes.
really beneficial. Like, okay, what can I take from each of these in order to make something for us, something that fits Loudon? Because the local churches, with the autonomy with which we operate, what might work in one local church in that regard might not be the best for the others. So that's
Well,
why I made what I made.
no, I think that's really, that's being totally transparent, being honest, right? And we've
Oh
all
yeah.
done. But sometimes people want to say, "Well, I created this." No,
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 listen,
no, you didn't. But
originality is very rare, I would say, in the preaching community. Most of us borrow and steal and then
yeah.
forget where we borrowed and stole it from other
Well,
people.
Matt and I are working on some things we won't get into, but it kind of triggered the thought of where there could be a link here to leading others to Christ, where there could be like a resource room, or where there could be things like that, where there could be samples of things that people could get ideas from. But something you said there triggered another thought, is that the community that we live in, Loudon, Tennessee, is very different than, let's say, than LA or Tampa or
Literally could
Harlem,
not be any polar opposites.
or Harlem, New York, where I interviewed Caleb Churchill.
Yeah.
But we're all doing the same work. We're teaching this and
Right.
preaching the same gospel and trying
Right.
to lead others to Christ. And so that's what's fascinating about all of this as well. Well, let's. I know that, as soon as I said Matt's going to be notifying me in a minute, we have 5 minutes left. He just did, Nick. He just said we have 5 minutes left.
It does go by fast.
Yeah, I could just ignore him and we could just keep going.
Hey, I'm down. If we, no offense to Matt at all, but I'm down to talk as long as we can.
Let's do this. Think of a conversion story, somebody, maybe a unique story or something that pops in your mind that you'd like to share with the group.
Yeah, probably my favorite is all right. So this connects. You're asking for some other names of people. I already know who the names I want to give to you to share. So one of this actually comes from that church.
Okay.
It's a church in North Hixson in Chattanooga. There was a brother there and a sister there, who the sister's mom actually lived in Jackson, where we were living, and her name was Joy Alexander, and she is actually an immigrant from Britain. She was born in England and still had a beautiful British accent. So the sister, her name was Moya. Moya contacted me and said, "Hey, my mom lives in Jackson, and I have given a lot of effort since Moya become a Christian to try to share the gospel with my mom, and she has not really been all that receptive to it for decades, really. But just recently, she began to ask me a lot of questions and wanted to know more about the Bible. So at the time, my parents actually went to North Hixson, so that was the connection between myself and Moya, and then my family and all that kind of stuff. So she said, "Would you mind sitting down with my mom or going and meeting her and studying with her?" I said, "Sure, I would love to do that." Had no idea what I was walking into. I knew Moya, wonderful, wonderful woman, so kind. So I went and met with her mom. Her name was Joy, like I said, and sat down. And my normal mode of operation, whenever I have the opportunity to sit down with someone, I am only guaranteed, as far as I know, that one study. So within that one time of sitting down with somebody, I shared what many people have used in various places, the big picture of the Bible with her. And within that study, kind of went through, again, just the big picture of the Bible, starting in Genesis and worked our way through the New Testament and just the story of God and mankind and the gospel. And once we concluded that, Joy said, well, I need to be baptized then. I said, "Oh, all right, well, let's do that." So we went and we baptized Joy, and Joy at that point in her life had dealt with a lot, dealt with loss of a husband, and had gone through a divorce, and had gone through the loss of a daughter as well, had numerous health issues. But once she became a disciple of Jesus, she was very dedicated, even though it was very difficult for her to get to services. This was prior to COVID. She was there. I want to say that was in probably in 2019, whenever she became a Christian. And then obviously with 2020 happening with COVID, with her health issues and stuff, that made us being able to be with each other a lot more difficult. But we persevered, and we continued to interact with one another even during COVID and do the studies I mentioned earlier. We sat down and did the studies with her as well. So whenever we decided to move from Jackson, that was one of the most difficult things, was leaving Joy, because her name fit. She was a joy to work with. She was a joy to get to know. And I would call her and talk to her some. after we had moved, but she passed away some months back, maybe about a year ago now. But that of all of those I've been able to bring to Christ, to lead to Christ, to go along with this interview, that's the one that stands out most to me, just because of everything about who Joy was, and just about the seemingly random connection from Chattanooga to Jackson. God works in incredible ways, and His gospel is for all, no matter your background, no matter where you're from, no matter what you might have done in the past, no matter what you've gone through, no matter your difficulties in life. The gospel reconciles people to God, and people to one another as well. I know the relationship that Moya had with Joy after that point was probably the best they had ever had, and I'm just really grateful to have been able to play a small part in that story.
Well, what a great story, and yeah, just several things there again. But it's like, what if? I've got a big what if thing that I
Yeah.
do. But what if Moya hadn't had that love for her mother
Mhm.
and that concern? What if Joy hadn't started asking questions?
Right.
What if Moya hadn't reached out to you?
Mhm.
And what if you had said, "Well, I don't have time. Maybe later. I don't have time to do that now."
Yeah.
It gets, and then the just the providence of God, how all of this works. We don't understand it, but
Absolutely.
there's a process that's going on that we have to have faith in, and He's going to give the increase,
Right.
but we have to do the work. But and then the fact that you said that she passed away not too long after she becomes a Christian, right?
Yeah, it
Joy.
was probably 2 years at
Yes.
most, about 2 years. Right.
So uh, I have a number of stories similar to that of a lot of people that think about. It seems like in a lot of conversations, it's always focused on the young people. All right, the young,
Mhm.
which we need to teach the young people. But and maybe this is because I'm a baby boomer. I was born in '46. I'm the first class of the baby boomers. But so many of our studies over the last few years have been with older men and women,
Right.
and they're starting to see their family and friends pass away, and all of a sudden they're starting to get interested in what
Mhm.
eternity is going to be all about. And there's just so many people out there that a lot of times maybe the average person in a congregation doesn't think that way, but there's just a lot of folks out there that if we'll just reach out to them, they're interested. Uh, well, listen, I know we're out of time, Nick. Just really good, and I've tried to close these out with what I call one thing, and you might have heard that in
Mhm.
podcasts that you listen to. But so somebody's listening to this, and hopefully that'll be the case that they go, well, hopefully they're listening and watching. But maybe you've said something there that kind of triggered and kind of got their engine going again, if you will, and they go, I need to start doing this evangelism thing again. I need to start reaching out to family and friends. What would you say to somebody would be one thing that they could start doing that would help them do that?
I would say the one thing that they can do is to not not be shy about their faith. So one thing is, like, for example, wearing a shirt like this that says "Faith,
Yes.
Hope, and Love." I got this from a fundraiser for an adoption, actually, for a Christian family. And I, over the past few years, have become much. I've had a greater desire to either wear clothing that expresses some sort of faith statement or scripture or something,
Yes.
or to be just talk about God more often.
Yeah.
I remember in my past being around people of faith as well, and they would just be so much more open about speaking about God. Say, "Oh, what a beautiful day it is," and they would spout back with, "Oh yeah, what a blessing this is from God." And I kind of like, "Whoa, what are you doing talking about God like that?" I'll just say how pretty of a day it is, and that
Yeah.
convicted me to recognize that we need to be very free about our expressions of God and to speak about God. It should never come as a surprise to anyone that we're Christians. That should be something I think that people recognize about us very quickly, from the clothing we wear or the statements that we make, the way we talk. Just everything we do ought to stand out to people that we are people of faith. and that
Yeah.
God is our focus. I think there's one thing you can do that. Just be much more expressive about your faith in the many different ways that we can.
Excellent. Excellent. Again, Nick, great to meet you this way, and appreciate you so much taking this time.
Yeah.
Keep up your good work there in Loudon. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, what's the contact information that you could share?
Yeah, yeah. I'm on Facebook. You can search Nick Angel, and you'll see my face pop up with my family. My email address is my name, Nick Angel, and then VFL@gmail.com. You can reach out to me there as well. You can check out our website for the Loudon Church. It's loudoncoc.org, loudoncoc.org. You can go there. You can send us a message on the website as well. It's still a little bit of a work in progress. We brought up a new website a few months ago, and I've been adding stuff to it ever since. But you can find the majority of the material that we produce there on the website. It's got links to our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, all of that you can find on the website loudoncoc.org.
Wonderful. All right. Well, again, just excellent interview, and I'm proud of you. And I don't know you, but I feel like I do after spending just 30 minutes with you here. But again, I look forward to seeing you someday in the future. So thanks again. And again, keep up the good work, and give your girls a hug for us.
I will do that. I will do. Thank you. Now, I appreciate this work that you're doing. This is a tremendous ministry. The way you serve the Lord in doing this way, highlighting the way people, all of us. I think of myself as nothing but a broken vessel, and yet the Lord uses me in some way. It just shows His power that He can even use me to accomplish some good for Him. And there are so many out there that are doing incredible work, and God bless you for highlighting that good work, and hopefully encouraging and motivating others to do the same. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you for your encouragement. And Lord willing, we'll see you soon. Thanks again, brother.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks so much.
Who pray, melt my heart and fill my life. Give me one soul today.